All right. So I'll continue here from the hypothesis. I hope this one's taking a bit. Okay. So hypothesis, or for plural, it's hypothesis. So it's a proposition or set of propositions for set forth as an explanation for the occurrence of some specified group of phenomena. So basically, this is assumed as a premise in an argument, or what we do like as an assumption. So in our research, remember, we have our hypothesis, but this is our assumption to what would happen in our research. But it's not really the final result. It's just our wild guess. Wild guess. Okay. So, what do you think is this? We have Mama Mary, nuns. Do you remember this guy? Oh, I forgot the word. So, from our words, remember the nuns? What do you think is the word from here? Chase. Okay, we answered Chase. Okay, very good, Miss Princess. So it's Chase. So Chase, I'll read it instead. So Chase is there. So Chase is refraining from something that's regarded as contrary or morality or religion, which is also mean pure or not excessively ornamented or simple. So that is Chase. Okay, for this next word, that's correct, Miss Angela. It's accusive. So accusive is the direct blame or responsibility towards someone or something. So an accusing look or glare. So who doesn't know what accusive is here? Okay, that's really good. Very good. You know what accusive is. Now let's go to our author. So this is our author. His name is William Sidney Porter, or what we or for his pen name or writer name, his pen name. That's correct. It is O. Henry. So please read. Someone who wants to read. Okay, Miss Barbie.
O. Henry is the pen name of American writer William Sidney Porter. O. Henry stories are famous for their humor and surprise endings. The O. Henry Awards, a prestigious annual prize given to outstanding short stories.
Okay, so this is our author for our today's literature. His name is O. Henry. So O. Henry is famous for his short stories, and he's also famous for their humor and surprise endings. So now, I have something here. So you can see, we are surrounded by pictures, and that could have that happened before. But are you aware of what's happening around us right now? What do you call this again?
Newspaper.
That's right. This is a real newspaper, guys, if you haven't seen one before. Okay. So this is our newspaper. So anyone who let's pick a... Okay. Who wants to read our headline?
Oh my God, nakita ko na yun.
Who wants to read our headline? Okay, Miss Princess.
The full
Just the headline.
again.
Yeah, that's the headline.
Mayor Guo wants mom to come out.
Okay, so who knows about Mayor Go? Go? Okay, so everyone is aware. So let me ask you a question now. So are you aware of the news that's happening around us? Do you still read this? Yeah. So how do you learn about the news?
Social media.
That's right, from the social media. What do you call the where you can see the post of your friends on Facebook?
Newsfeed.
That's correct. It's newsfeed. So right now we really don't use much of this anymore. In fact, it was really hard for me to find this newspaper now, since it's not really something that we can see any longer. But we are still aware of what's happening because of what we call the social media, because we can see it from our news feed. So let us try to learn from what was happening before, and at the same time to have an insight of what is our story all about by having a gallery walk. Okay, so everyone please stand up. So as you can see, I've added some spaces here at the side, and let's try to walk around our classroom by starting here. Okay.
Exhibit.
Okay, so come here, follow me, as I'm going to be your tour guide.
In New York.
Field trip. That's right. Okay, so let's start here in our first station. Please don't cover our projector. So, in our story, there will be a character named Giuseppe. So this is what Giuseppe's newspaper stand looks like. So can you still see newspaper stands like this? No, not anymore. That's right. But during his time, this is what they look like. So let's come over here. Okay, so over here is our newspaper. So can you read the headline here, Miss Bernardino? Okay, and then how about here?
Don't read the normal papers. It says government with legal.
Okay, so this one is a made-up newspaper, but the contents here is actually related to our story that we will read, which is
Newspaper story.
okay. So now let's go over here in our next picture. So can you guys see? So right here, let's call this guy as a young man or Jack. So this is Jack during his life. This is what he looks like. So Jack has a girlfriend. Wow. So his oh wow, Jack Daniels. Okay. So Jack's girlfriend is our girl over here. Her name is Margaret Atwood, or she calls herself as Benedict. So Miss, some more, can you read what the Miss Benedict said in this article or in this news announcement here? Okay, so this is Benedict's letter for Jack, since she probably did something that she shouldn't do. Okay, so now let's go here to our next one. So earlier, Miss Mapapanglaog mentioned that she was it you that uses crossword puzzles? Okay, by Margaret. So sorry. So this is our crossword puzzle over here. So crossword puzzles were a big thing during this time. So this was like 1900s. So people loved the newspaper for this very reason. They loved answering their crossword puzzles. And in fact, as you can see, there were lots of designs for the crossword puzzle before. There were hearts, stars, and sometimes you can only find them. It's just really a big thing. Okay, so over here we have the Victorian era classroom. So right here. So what can you see in our picture? So here's the classroom, and then this is what we call the corporal classroom. So during that time, yeah, remember Matilda? Yes. So during that time, this was a big phenomenon. So the students there would punish their students not by yelling at them. That's actually very casual. Before they will really hit the students with sticks and even slap them. Yes. No, that's a form of abuse according to that newspaper. So we are not going to do that. So let's go here. So you know what is this?
Like,
Okay, so these are words. So this is what the offices looks like before. So as you can see, these are the laborers. They're doing typewriting jobs. So before we don't have laptops, either we will write the content by hand or they are written in terms of their company. Use typewriters by Margaret. Okay, so let's move over here. Okay, so this is a bartender during the 1900s. Okay, so this is a bartender. Yes. So maybe they're serving champagne. We don't know. So this is a bartender. Do not forget what they look like, how they dress. Okay, and then now let's go here. So please read this strike on all unions. Okay, so do you know what a strike is? Not strike rebellion. Strike is yes, that's right. That's correct. So do you know what is this? doing. So they're doing it. So they're protesting and so who stops those protesting? Okay, so who are those people who stop those protesters? We have the police. So this guy is Mr. This one is Police O'Brien. That's his name. So Police O'Brien. And this guy is the head of our protesters. This is the labor leader. This guy over here. So do not forget. Okay, so now you can go back to your seats. Thank you so much for your cooperation. Okay, so now let's try to connect the dots. So we have our leaders earlier. I'm going to give you something really that could guide you to what's happening in our story. So please, you can share if you want. There you go. So this is a newspaper story. So that is the copy by Henry. That is the copy of our story. So let's try to connect the dots. Okay, so remember the guy from our first photo, from our first station, his name is Giuseppe. So Giuseppe is the newsstand operator who sells newspapers to passersby. But he doesn't sell it the way that you think that newspaper sellers do. They do not stand around and give papers like that. What he does is that he just stands there like this. And then he waits someone to grab the paper and then drop their coin. So that's what he does. So he is shrewd and cunning, and he just leaves his stand unattended to avoid serving customers directly. So it's his strategy. So he doesn't really bother them. He just stands there, watch them grab their paper and go. So Giuseppe's absence from his stand allows for the newspaper to be just really taken by our characters in this story. Okay, so the young man. So who's the young man here in our picture? Is this guy, Jack. So Jack, Benji Park, is one of the protagonists of our story. So he is very tired. He's depicted as tired, haggard, rushing through his morning routine to reach his office on time, and he is somewhat absent-minded. So one morning, Jack, or the young man, was just walking, doing his own thing, but he's really tired, he's so sad. So what he did was that he grabbed a newspaper from Giuseppe's stand, and then while he was walking to get his haircut, the newspaper flew out of his pocket, like that. And then when it flew out, also his gloves were dropped on the floor. So he was really pissed, he was really mad. So he stood up and he grabbed it again, and then he found someone while walking back to get his gloves, which is Miss Margaret Goodwin, this unfortunate lady here. Oops. Okay, so this is Margaret Goodwin, the young man's girlfriend. So Margaret Goodwin is penitent. So she's depicted as a penitent character who seeks forgiveness from someone named Jack. So I don't know what she did. It wasn't really explicitly told in this story, but the message in the newspaper sets off like as a case of a mistaken identity. So she just plays penitent. Remember the one that you've read over here. So she just plays as penitent and then asks if Jack can meet her at the Madison or corner of Madison. Okay. So what do you think happened? So did Jack and Margaret met? Well, yes, they did, but in a very strange way. So remember when Jack dropped his newspaper and gloves, and then he had to turn around and come back? That is when he met Margaret, without even knowing that Margaret placed a announcement in the newspaper. Okay, so don't forget that. All right, so that is how they met. So after they met, they kissed probably. So they kissed probably, and then the newspaper flew out of Jack's hand as they were having their moment. So this is where the newspaper flew to this person named Bobby. Remember the carriage over there? So Bobby is a young man who seeks romantic advice from the newspaper heart-to-heart column. So newspapers, newspapers, right? They have their heart-to-heart column. That's where you can read your love advice if you don't have one. But since Bobby's pursuit of romantic advice actually indirectly leads to his involvement in a traffic accident. So the traffic accident that time, remember they have carriages, is actually a horse going crazy. That's right. So the horse were very unruly. So it started running off and it hit our guy here named Bobby. So Bobby was hit by a horse. Got trampled on by a carriage. Not a car, a horse. Okay, so the newspaper covered the face of the horse, the flying newspaper that came from Jack. It hit the horse face and then it became unruly and became crazy. And then while Bobby was seeking the love advice, the love of his life, he was hit by a horse that was running away from the newspaper. So what happened is Bobby were taken by someone, and then that someone is the love of his life. So the love of his life took care of him, brought him up, brought him home, and then they confessed each other's love. And then after that, while they were having their moment as well, the newspaper that hit the face of the horse of the carriage was taken by Police O'Brien, the guy over here, that one. So Police O'Brien is a diligent officer who takes his duty seriously. So he is depicted as a stoic and observant character. So he grabbed the paper and then he kept it actually as evidence. So when he encountered the newspaper, so he went to a bartender. So okay, let's go back there. Okay, so then the bartender, remember the bartender behind you? That was that guy. So they went there. So the evidence that he was using, the newspaper, he used it to cover the part of it. He used the part of it to cover his drink. So do you know that policemen during that time are not allowed to drink during service? I'm not sure if that's still applicable today, but if they are they're outside and then they're wearing their uniforms or they're having their duty, they're not allowed to drink. But our Police O'Brien over there decided that it's a good day to drink while wearing his uniform. But no one will know, right? So he covers the drink that he's drinking inside the bar. So the rest of the newspaper again flew out of it. I mean, he gave it to someone. So that someone is this guy. So this guy. So this is Johnny and Gladys. So they're children. They're just young kids. So Johnny is a young boy, so he got the newspaper, while Gladys is with Gladys, his sister. So they both play minor roles in the story, but it's still very important. So remember this one? Yes. So this is the corporal punishment. So Johnny is very clever. So as his sister. So what they did with the newspaper that they got is that they used it as part of their garment. So first for Gladys. So that time, you know the sati, the sound of sati. There's like a paper sound underneath it, right? So the gowns, the dresses before. So that was something that's very expensive during that time. So what Gladys did is that under his skirt he placed some newspaper under that one, and then it sounds like she's wearing a sati. So if she moves, it sounds really fluffy, it sounds crunchy. That when she went to school, her classmates were very jealous. Okay, so they were very jealous. And then Gladys, that was Gladys. And then Johnny, our boy Johnny here, the young guy, let's just say that he can be very naughty as a kid. So kids during the time can be very naughty. So as you can see in our newspaper, you can even read it, the one I gave you. So corporal punishment is something that is a form of abuse. So for our Johnny, little Johnny, to avoid that, he used the newspaper to cover his body so that if his teacher will hit him, he will not feel anything. Isn't that abuse? So they used the newspaper to its purpose. So it was mentioned in our newspaper that corporal punishment is a problem and that the police officers needed more money to be more to do more in their work so that they would be more diligent. And then the last one that is in our newspaper, the one that's flying around, is the strike call. The strike call by the labor, the labor leader. Okay, so the labor leader. And do you know that the labor leader is Johnny and Gladys' father? So just like what Ms. Mababang Laog mentioned, we use our newspaper for crossword. So the labor leader was being called out in this newspaper, in the newspaper story. Like he should stop asking, doing his strike because it's very harmful for everyone. But the thing is, he was just distracted for this crossword that he managed to forget about the strike and just answered the crossword. So there was no strike that happened. Okay, so the strike didn't happen. Okay, so that is basically the news story, a newspaper story. So that's all the story all about. If you're going to just read it, to the one I gave you, it's kind of confusing because you don't know why is this, there are just too many people happening around here. But that is the point of the story. The point of the story, just like what we did earlier in our gallery wall, is that we are just going. That we were the newspaper earlier. This different, very different people were connected, interconnected by one newspaper. So that's how powerful a newspaper can be. It doesn't just give you information, but it can also connect different people. Okay, so that is basically a newspaper story. All right, so now it's kind of ironic that we learned that this in our story that the newspaper were just used not by from its contents by its physical form. So it's kind of ironic, right? So it says there that the labor leader should stop the strike, which he did, but not because of the newspaper content, not the editorial that told him to stop, but it's because of the crossword. So isn't that ironic? So who are you aware of the word ironic? Are you aware? Yes or no? Okay, so it seems that you are aware. Very good for you. So our author here, O. Henry, was known for his use of irony. So just the story itself is very ironic already on it. Just the main title, actually, a newspaper story. When we say a newspaper story, the first thing that comes in our mind is the articles, right? But it's not. It's basically the story of a newspaper going to different people. So it's kind of ironic already in that form. So O. Henry uses situational irony to create anticipation and surprise at an unexpected ending. So when we talk about irony, it's not just the situational irony. So there are also different types. So but first, what is irony? So irony is a rhetorical device that's used to express an intended meaning by using language that conveys the opposite meaning. So just like what I said earlier. So our title, a newspaper story, it doesn't literally mean an article that talks about something. It is the literal story of a newspaper. So that's it. So it's a wordplay, right? You know, it's a wordplay. So in an Oxford's dictionary, the irony is the opposite of what you really mean. So it's not really literally always the opposite. Sometimes it can be just a different meaning or just more of a wordplay in this sense. So it gives humor, a plot twist, something like that in our story. So now here's the types of irony. We have the first, the verbal irony. So maybe this is the favorite of people, some other people here. So writers and speakers use verbal irony to mean the opposite of what is actually stated. So usually for humor. So please read our next definition. Anyone? Okay, Miss Joanna.
The author has put the character's life in such a way that the intended meaning is the exact opposite of what is being said. Unlike the other types of irony, when verbal irony is used, the character knows the truth but uses irony intentionally in a sarcastic manner to improve the meaning.
Okay, so when the author has put the character's lines, so just like I think you're familiar when somebody says that, oh wow, this is so cool, but they're not, but the tone of their voice is just, oh wow, I look happy, yeah. So that's sarcasm. That's a form of verbal irony. So here's a type of verbal irony. So this is the Socratic irony. So what do you think is Socratic irony? Anyone that can read? Okay, Miss Patricia.
A type of verbal irony that occurs when someone pretends ignorance or I do reveal
Okay, please continue reading. Please come in.
to reveal someone else's ignorance or inconsistency, especially to encourage learning.
Okay, so please be a seat. Okay, so now we have, let's just have another check of our attendance. Now we have 7 students. So we have Ms. Riles and I'm our 7th student for today. Okay, so thank you very much, Miss Patricia. So again, the Socratic irony is a type of verbal irony that occurs when someone pretends ignorance. So this is actually very helpful. Lawyers use Socratic irony, or it's a form of rhetoric where they pretend that they don't know what's happening in the case. So here's an example of a Socratic irony. For example, let's use Miss Athena as our example. Okay, so Miss Athena, why are you late?
Because I didn't hear my alarm.
Oh, so she did not hear her alarm clock. But I already knew that she's going to be late today because she did not hear her alarm clock ring. So the Socratic irony is more like just pretending that you don't know, so that you're going to use that as an argument or to be someone like for example, just to make your own point that so that means she's late because of not waking up early. Okay, so something like that. So another Socratic irony is that for example, you're in a courtroom and then there's a case. So you're asking, you know that this person is guilty, but you want to make a point. So you're telling this person that, okay, so did you really hid the knife? Even though he already said that I hid the knife under the kitchen. So did you hid the knife under the kitchen? So something like that. So that is the Socratic irony. Okay, so next one we have sarcasm. So sarcasm, our favorite. So this is Marty, please read.
A type of verbal irony that occurs when someone says, "Oh, marvelous, dude," means something unfortunate opposite of the literal meaning for it.
Yes, it's okay. So opposite of the literal meaning. So this is the one that we were talking all about earlier. When I said like, wow, cool, but my face looks like this. Really cool. Yeah, that's sarcasm. Because you were really amazed of what you saw. Or someone was performing and then it was just really disappointing. That what you can say was, wow, great. Okay, like that. Like that. So that is sarcasm. Or maybe if somebody was asking you, are you busy? And you say, no, I'm not busy, even though if you're doing a lot of things. So that is sarcasm. Okay, so next one we have the understatement. So this is in Tagalog people call this pahangol, something like that. So this is understatement. So you're understating. So a type of verbal irony in which the speaker uses a last time. Okay. So understatement. So again, you're using words that is more of like the lesser version of what appropriate word is. So just like here, or an example, when an athlete or someone is winning, winning. So the champions they say we didn't play too bad. So they're just trying to be humble. Well, they really did great. Okay, so that is now. Then we hyperbole, the exaggeration of the words. We know that. Hyperbole. Okay, hyperbole. And then now next type is the situational irony, the one that we saw in our story earlier, where the events in the story or play give the readers a result that is different from what they had been expecting, just like our story earlier. The newspaper, we were expecting it to be something that we will read about the articles, but instead it's just the newspaper floating around. Just like what we did earlier, we just walked around here. Yes, that's right. So even how these two met, it was very ironic because Jack didn't even read the newspaper and they still met. It's like destiny, okay? So that is situational irony. And then we have the dramatic irony, which is a literary device by which the audience or readers understand the events or individuals in a work or surpasses that of its character. So it's a form of irony that's expressed through the word structure. So it gives the audience the awareness of the situation. So it gives that wow factor or the one that we know now, the plot twist. Something like that. Okay. So here's our scenario. So kindly read this, try this one. So can somebody read? Yes, Miss Princess.
The labor leader who the newspaper sternly criticizes in an editorial never reads the editorial. Instead, he becomes engrossed in a puzzle printed on the same page.
Okay, so remember that guy over there. So the labor leader, this one, he was criticized in the newspaper that was floating around, the one that John had. But instead, what he did was he didn't even bother reading the editorial. He just played and answered the crossword puzzle. So what do you think is the type of irony of the life? Why is this situation ironic? The answer is already there. Why do you think famous?
Seems supposed to criticism argument, but instead of reading it, just did the crossword puzzle instead.
Okay, very good. So that's the answer. So it wasn't really. We were thinking that he's supposed to to be stopped by the editorial chief, probably the editorial that was written against him. Instead, the strike was stopped because he was too busy answering the crossword puzzle. Okay, so please keep answering nicely so that we will have your delays. It's Mambu. Okay, so now here's our skill exercise. But since it's already time, let's just take a photo of this. Okay, I'll give you a choice. Do you want an objective type of quiz or create your own irony type of quiz?
Create your own.
Okay. Oh, okay. Alright, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to create your own irony. So please take a picture if you can. So this is what we're going to do. Think of an everyday object and imagine how it could lead to an ironic situation in someone's day. So just write just 3 to 5 sentences, okay? Yeah, for example, like that. So just think of anything, just like what happened to our newspaper earlier. Okay, so here's the rubric for this. Oh wow, wow, that's our rubric. Okay, so it's very, very, very small because of the projector. Okay, so just take a picture. So this is how you're going to be graded. It's kind of small though, but please take a photo because it's too dear. Okay, so that is our. Okay, so now let's have the value. So valuing time. What's the importance of press in our life? The press or news media is important because yes, it's
It gives us information and
yes. Okay, so that. Okay, so now and I wish that's our valuing and that's our quiz earlier. So here's our assignment. Imagine you're a modern day journalist. Write a brief editorial for a contemporary newspaper that uses irony to make a point about the current issue. So that's our assignment. So take a picture again and that's it. Do you have any questions, clarifications? Okay, so let's have our closing prayer. So, it's Barbie, our closing prayer.